Resume recording. Okay, hello everyone. This is Mark Buzan here, joining you from live. Well, we hoped it was going to be live, but again, we've come across some tech problems. Zoom has not really decided it doesn't want to cooperate with us today, so the recording is going to have to go up after this. Goes to show you, you want to take part, you got to register. You got to register. So I'm here from our wonderful co-working space here in Gatineau, Quebec, Canada. I'm joined here by my debate opponent, Rodney Walker, in from the Los Angeles area. Thank you very much. If you don't know anything about me, my name is Mark Buzan. I am the founder of the Society of Nonprofit Board Directors. I'm a two-time executive director, 2 national associations. I've been a board director myself and now a consultant as well to nonprofits all over, and helping them find creative and innovative ways to grow and 10 times their fundraising capabilities without necessarily relying on grants. Now, my opponent, however, believes very strongly in grants. And I'll introduce you to him in a moment there as well. But I believe in all kinds of options on what they are all about. So just before we get into what the possibilities are, let me tell you, I believe in the strength of grants, the strength of fundraising options on a variety of different things. There's planned giving, I love memberships and different member levels as a way for nonprofits to think about how to raise money. I love events and raffles, board giving, online fundraising, direct mail, bequeaths and wills. I personally really love sponsorships as well. And what I like most about them is the possibility to diversify your revenues and provide more direct accountability to your groups. Tell me without it, we won't get into the debate just yet, but tell me a little bit about yourself, Rodney, and why is it that you like grants so much?
Oh, hey, well, Mark, thanks for having me on today, and I'm excited about our time to get a chance to kind of spar back and forth with a heated but friendly debate. You know, I got into grant writing a number of years ago, and I'm excited about grant writing because when I first started, it was a new world to me, and I fell in love with it because I saw the potential. I was working for a nonprofit organization. We had a contract grant writer. That grant writer was writing grants for the agency, and in a couple of months, coming back, letting me know after she took my words, a few others' words, that we had gotten funded, and I was blown away with that. So since that time, after diving into it, getting into it, fell in love with it, and been able to help a number of organizations to be successful in it. So that's a real quick, short version of why I am excited about the possibilities of sharing this time together with some of those listeners that you have.
Yeah, well, thank you very much about that. So, look, I'll tell you a little bit about Frank there. I mean, I respect you enormously. You made some claims. I've watched a lot of your videos on this. I'll get into some of the points, frankly, about why I have got such a challenging perspective on this. First and foremost, and maybe I'll put them out and I'll make my case, and you can tell me why. Maybe you can offer your rebuttal on this.
Okay.
The biggest concerns I have often enough with nonprofits relying on grants is what I call the nonprofit starvation cycle. And maybe you can relate to this like this, is that I see so many of them getting a dependence on it. It's almost kind of like a drug dependence on this one thing. It's elusive. It's alluring. I'll tell you that. Wow. I spent a little bit of time. I draft up a proposal, and then pow! I've got 100, 200, 50,000, whatever that is, and hot diggity, we're all set up. And then they go about just forgetting about their business development initiatives there, and then a year later, they've got oh my God, what are we going to do if we don't let this organization exactly what they're looking for? We could be in a lot of trouble. Is really this. And it's all about, and the board discussions are all about this fact that there is, well, what would the grant want? What would the grant writer want? What would the grant, and forget about the whole other mission. And I guess what I've said on this is I've read, it was a Stanford study. I'm Canadian, you're so I'll use your things, yours. your stuff here, and there's a lot of our audience who are growing and joining us are from the U.S., but Stanford cited, and I can't agree with them anymore, of the importance of nonprofits having robust infrastructure.
Yeah.
To be able to deliver on their services. That means their IT, their financial services have to be, all structures have to be in place, their HR, just basic things that we call, quote unquote, overhead.
Yeah.
Yet I see so many of these, or I hear anecdotal evidences of these things where funders just don't want to fund, quote unquote, overhead. They want to fund their little pet projects. And executive directors all over, I hear them, they agree with me tacitly, and they loathe this aspect, but they say, well, that's what the grant writer wants. And then as a result, all the critical elements to be able to back it up go unfunded because it's all about what the grant wants. Maybe now I've had my soapbox. It's only fair I turn it over to you.
Hey, Mark, I can't disagree with you on this. In fact, I actually agree with you on this. That too many nonprofit organizations are overly reliant just on grants, and that's a big no-no. I'm more with you in that sense that it has to be a holistic picture. It needs to be a comprehensive picture that looks at getting funded from a variety of ways and not overly relying on grants. Now, as you properly pointed out, that there are some people that get fascinated with the fact that you can write a grant and in a couple of months, 2 or 3 months, there can literally be hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in some cases, much more than that. But the overly dependence on it, man, I agree with you. I think there needs to be balance with it, and I think that too many nonprofits morph into being whatever they want to be in order to get funded, and that, for me, I'm completely opposed to. I'm about them developing a comprehensive system that allows them to tap in, to show their best, to be their best and express their best, and grants just happens to be one way of showing that picture, but it should not be the only way, because as you pointed out, it ends typically in a year for a foundation. Now, if it's a government grant, it can be multi-year, but typically 1 year. So there needs to be other funding coming from other places. There needs to be diversity in terms of their funding sources.
We're vigorously agreeing on this, but people came for a little bit of sparring date. I mean, I'm going to put this out to you. I mean, what point at which do the grant funding organizations hold in some degree of responsibility in this? Because you can't help but blame a nonprofit. They're just trying to survive. They're just trying to get along, and it's this big elephant in the room there, saying, oh my God, well, this is what they want. So what are you left to do?
Well, I'm not in favor of blaming the one who's giving out the money, because as at the end of the day, whoever creates the game creates the rules, and in this case, they have the funds, and you play by their rules. Now, here's what I'm about. I'm about saying, nonprofit, if you're serious about getting funded, don't blame. Get yourself in shape, okay? It's almost like blaming somebody on the outdoors for saying, okay, great, I'm overweight. Well, you have an opportunity to exercise, okay? And in the same way, the nonprofit can exercise and get itself in shape to be able to become more attractive to funders, to donors, to all these places. So the blame game, I think, needs to be thrown out the window. And I think we need to really look at ourselves in the mirror and say, okay, great, what do we need to do to become more attractive to funders and donors?
Okay, you heard it, folks. I guess we're sort of disagreeing on this, but vigorously agreeing on other points there. So here's this then. Okay, then further to that point then, what I just found just so ridiculous about this is that another study I read was boardsource.org. Now, you probably have heard of BoardSource. I mean, they're a pretty reputable organization, and they study the sector. And folks, if you're not aware of them, then you should really be aware of them. They've got some great materials out there. But they did a survey of some 1,500 non-profit organizations, and we found that because of this grant roller coaster being up and down and up and funded, they found that most of them, their IT was just so bad that they couldn't even track outcomes of which grant funders are looking for as to what the outcomes are. there. And my concern of why so many of them are relying on this is that it sets up unrealistic expectations for what it even costs to run a nonprofit. And I guess my impression, my experience thus far, I was turned off from nonprofits a while ago, is that, this is just simply a question of setting yourself up for failure in many ways, because it sets up, it doesn't communicate, or a lot of funders, they want to fund their pet projects. They don't recognize that lesser sexy part of the fact that, you know what, you want to fund it and get that project and those outcomes happening. You got to pay people decently. Don't pay them slave wages. Don't pay them like this. You need to get good, competent people in. In fact, folks, funders, that costs money. That costs money. So that's a little bit of my concern about this, about what can you do about, and maybe you can address the whole aspect of what I see happening so often with funders, as grant funders, is this reluctance to fund what I call what's quote unquote overhead.
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan, Mark, of not cursing what you have, and I'm like, hey, if the funder is the source of major funding that helps a lot of good to come about, as a nonprofit, why should I be getting mad with the rules that they have? Man, I'm more in favor of saying, hey, look, you have these seeds, and we don't want to curse the seeds that we have. We want to, as a nonprofit organization, get more in shape and be more attractive and play by the rules that they laid out, because they have the funds, they have the resources. We don't want to badmouth them and say, okay, great, hey, you guys, hey, we have these funding pieces over here, and you're only funding that. With it, a part of what most funders are doing, they're trying to keep the nonprofit organization from becoming overly dependent upon them. And that's why most of the time those grants are for like 1 year. And most of them want you to have multiple funders coming to support your endeavor. None of them really want to say, hey, we want to fund it all, because after we're done this next year, what's your succession plan? And it's almost like weaning. It's almost like weaning a child off of you. We're like, hey, great, hey, we're going to help to support this, but we don't want you, we don't want you to be a 5-year-old or 10-year-old kid still winging. Okay, so I think a part of it is a mind shift for some of the nonprofits out there. Just like, right here, we're not going to be overly dependent upon any one source, but we can't curse some of the great provisions that these foundations and funders bring our way.
Yeah. So, well, I guess in some ways, with respect, sorry, there, you're kind of making my point there in a way, Rodney, because that's the issue that I guess that comes up about this is, again, any kind of I guess that's the thing that I just find so frustrating, is that in the private sector, venture capitalists recognize that there's some there's some hard costs to running a business. You need good people. And good people cost money. They're worth it. And you want this. The number one beef I hear often across all nonprofit boards from executive directors, it's a lot of griping, is I work too hard and they don't pay me enough, and I'm not valued, and
sure.
What's doing this, and it's just suffering is there. But when grant funders, and let's put a scenario out. Let's say you're a small nonprofit organization. And I've come across a lot of them. Maybe just a solo ED, or you have 2 or 3 staff like this. There are only so many hours in the day. Can we agree on that? There's just only so much one person can humanly accomplish. Okay.
Absolutely.
But when grant funders put limits on a variety of things, quote unquote, hiring, and they put a limit as a result on the ability of the organization to do exactly what you're talking about, is to set itself up on a long road. You can't, if there was an ability, if it was easy, I like to say, there's a saying my dad used to say to me when I was his kid, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
You're right.
If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But the fact of the matter is that in order to get yourself towards that longer term degree of sustainability, you've got to invest in that back end. You've got to invest in good people. And I'm amazed at how few nonprofits invest in their own business development. And to that effect, their own business development from many grant providers is considered, quote unquote, wait for the word, overhead. So what's the the answer to this is, I mean, how sustainable can this really be if a nonprofit is focusing so much of its attention on jumping through all these hoops to fulfill one big funder?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. Why? We have a number of things. Okay, so back to your point that you made mention, you have these funders. They set their rules up of kind of what they want to fund. Now, I'm looking at it from both perspectives because I've been on the side of a funder giving out the funds, and I also been on the side of the grant seeker. And with it, you got to look at two things. The funders are looking at this as an investment. So as they look to invest, just like you and I look to make an investment, we want to invest in something that we know is going to be sustainable. We don't want to invest in something that's going to be here today, gone tomorrow. And so the challenge that a lot of newer nonprofit organizations have is that they have to learn how to stand on their own 2 feet up front. Okay. Yeah. And many nonprofit organizations rush into thinking that, okay, great. Hey, as soon as we set up our structure, man, people are going to start giving us grants. And that's a misnomer.
Manna come falling down from the sky as that the grants is going to, yeah.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. And most new nonprofit organizations will not get funded until they've been in existence for at least 2 years. Again, the funders are looking at it, hey, we want to make sure that when we make an investment, that we're investing in something that we know is going to be here, that has some traction, some history. So that's where the nonprofits then needs to look at these other funding sources to strengthen themselves and get established and make sure that they're well established, which makes them in the future more attractive for grant funding. But if they're relying on it from Jump Street, man, you're setting yourself up for a losing situation. I wouldn't recommend it. I would say, hey, great, let's go diversify and get some funds from some other sources.
Okay. Well, there you go. I guess in applicability in some certain circumstances here.
But yeah, exactly. And I'm kind of like what you said earlier, Mark, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I believe like if you're gonna build a house, you don't want to just build a house with a hammer. You need a hammer, you need a saw, you need some nails, you need all of those. And I think to rely on anyone just as the main source, it can be quite dangerous, especially if that one source is removed, whether that be sponsorship, grants, plan giving, whether that be whatever.
Hallelujah on that, because I've witnessed it. I mean, maybe one of these days I'll be a project of mine to do actually a study on this. But my experiences are all anecdotal. I've noticed over the last year or so. In fact, was on a call with a board director just yesterday about the fact that they had been funded by one major foundation, a grant, year over year.
Yeah.
And they had lived and breathed off of this whole thing. And the funder said, you know what, you guys are not going sustainable like this, you're not growing like this, we're pulling out. We're pulling out. And now the discussion is, do we even keep this organization going on? I'm thinking, Lord God, Jesus, you had 8 years to think about this. What were you doing?
Exactly. Things do change. There's no place in our world where something is not going to change. And that's why I think it has to be a well-balanced approach. You may have some of your funding coming from grants. Some of it may be coming from sponsorship. Some of it may be coming from direct giving or plan giving. But you need to have a healthy mix. And any reliance on any of these it can be dangerous, because what happens when, like you just said in that example, when things change. So that's why I think with grant funding, there needs to be a comprehensive approach. And that's why I'm more in favor of developing grant development campaigns that are more comprehensive, that look at all of those other fundraising aspects that are also critical.
Okay, my other beef now with this.
Give me your beef.
My beef. Okay, so we're gonna take Kenitha. We're gonna take your question in a moment at the end there. So bear with us there. And otherwise, as well, if anybody has some questions, leave them in the chat box there. We'll pick it up. But you know, Rodney and I, we got to duke it out a little bit longer there. And you can
Come on, let's go.
Okay, so this is the other part. My other beef with this. The amount of time that goes in and invested in just one single grant application, to pick up that other that nonprofit organization foundation I was speaking to yesterday, board director, I was shaking my head on this. They said because of that loss of that big funder there, it spun the whole staff into a crisis mode, thinking, oh my God, how are we going to be able to replace that?
Sure.
And all staff, the three of them, for a month and a half, are focused on just preparing this one big grant proposal. Because some of them are, I mean, I've seen some of them, for God's sakes, you think you're submitting an affidavit before court or something like this.
Sure.
Work that goes into these things. The time factor in a lot of these things that nonprofits don't factor in is the time lost in hunting for and responding to grants, and then on top of that as well, just keeping regular accountability as to those grant funders, assuming that you do get the money there. Because let me give you another study that I'd found there. Same, I think, with Stanford or board sources. That it said a study showed if you were to actually do or price out, if nonprofits were to price out their people by the hour, like a consulting firm, but what their value is, just the administration of submitting that was almost 31% of the grant values itself. It was for many government grants. And yet, it varied, but it could be as much as 31% of the value. So let's say you have $100,000 granted to your organization. The cost of administering that thing was $31,000.
Sure.
That's not factored in, yet ironically enough, some of these funders have the gall, the temerity of saying the value of their administration of this thing shall not exceed 13%, which is just crazy. So tell me what you think about that.
Well, that's a great question, and in regards to it, again, whoever has the money creates the rules. So again, there's some things that I don't fight. And that's one of those things. It's almost like, hey, we know that we have summertime, we have wintertime. When the seasons change, I can't fight that. Night and day, I can't. Some things are just the way things are. And so I'm not in favor of fighting a cause that I can't win. And in regards to it, I think as nonprofits have to realize, okay, great. It is an investment of time and energy. When you do grants, they're giving you funding to invest in your project, to bring that project into reality, which has a cost. If they have the money and they're setting the rules for it, what am I going to do? If I want those funds, I play by the rules. Now, here's the thing. We want to play by the rules, but also we want to be savvy as nonprofits and create ways of funding that are not solely dependent upon grant. It may entail grants, which when we look at the whole landscape of grants, and here's one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of grants. Grants, if you have your act together, and if you do what the others are not doing and have your act together, grants provided an enormous opportunity to bring tremendous funding in. And what can happen with that, you can leverage that time with other projects and by securing additional funding. Let me give you one example. Google has a grant that is fairly easy to get, okay, where they will give nonprofit organizations up to $10,000 a month to be able to use Google ad space. Now, here's the problem. Here's the real problem. Yeah. Most nonprofit organizations don't know how to leverage that to attract more volunteers, to attract more sponsors, to attract other funds. So what happens, literally $120,000 of grant funding is literally laying before them, but in most cases, because they haven't learned how to leverage that and use it to their advantage. And then there's typically always a small percentage that learns how to milk the cow most effectively. And what happens, they end up getting the majority of those funds. So the bottom line, what I'm saying, Mark, is this. Nonprofits have to become smarter. They have to become more savvier to use these to their advantage, or just like with anything else in life, you lose.
Well, you beat me on my punch point. My problem is he was going to bring up Google Grants. I love Google Grants, the concept of them. In past careers, I've been successful at them. But yeah, I found exactly that's that problem. And often, unfortunately, I find in the grants funding, that's like in the very, very fine print down the list. Is, oh, really? Okay, it's not so easy as we thought it is. I think that is the problem come about by so many nonprofits. They think, again, for those of us who are joining in, we got a few more joining in. My beef is that, grants, they seem so alluring up front, but you don't realize that there's a cost.
It's work.
It would always say to me, kid, if it was easy, everybody be doing it.
Exactly. I mean, I think it's work with anything. And I think it's nonprofits, for profit, anybody is thinking that everything's going to be easy, that easy things don't bring results. It is work. And the nonprofit organization that's sitting on the fence saying, okay, great, hey, I want to do these things to help my nonprofit to grow and flourish, you got to roll up your sleeves and learn some things, which means that you've got to get some new knowledge. And if you're going to be effective in getting any kind of funding, I don't care if it's grant funding, bequest, I don't care if it's direct support, whatever, all of it is work. So if they're allergic to work, then don't sign up for this. But if you really want to get funding from these sources, you've got to learn. You've got to get the tools. You've got to get the right people. So if I'm thinking about sponsorships, Mark, I need to talk to you. Okay, if they're talking about grants, they may want to talk to me or somebody that can help them to learn how to do this. But the bottom line is, it is work. It's just like anything else, and you got to learn the rules of engagement and learn how to do it at a very high level.
All right. Well, here you have it. Now, what about this final concern? I think you already touched on this. My concern, and this is the saddest part about it, as I come across so many really dedicated nonprofit startups. Mm-hmm. They've got beautiful projects, and my heart breaks for them, and that they're struggling so much. And that initial cash influx, that seed capital, that funder capital, that's where it could be so useful. Yet ironically enough, funders don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
You're right. Now you ask, here's the question. Do you want to find something that is iffy? And there's somebody.
I'll tell you this, if it's not, if it's iffy, it's iffy, fair enough. But I should be, just like there'd be no difference. I view grant funders, if they were acting in their role, and in my humble opinion, their rightful role, much like a venture capitalist. Now, not everybody's going to get funded on this, sure, but that's the whole purpose. Why the whole purpose have a big influx there to get something started, to give it the shot in the arm, so that these nonprofits have a fighting chance. Yet they don't want to touch that. Now, of course, it's going to be up to a nonprofit founder to make a very compelling case. And if that were the case where they were having trouble with not making a pitch, but that funders would actually look into that, then I think we wouldn't have a conversation. But I guess that's my bit of my beef with this.
Yeah, and I understand. Here's the thing. I think the funders, again, are the ones, in this case, we just look at it in black and white, they're the ones with the funds. And they get a chance to determine which organizations they choose to invest in. That's why they make a report to the government, and they say, hey, government, this is what we want to invest our funds in. And as they choose which organization they want to make their funds in, they get a chance to kind of determine that. All that the government is really concerned about is, are you giving away that 5% of your net annual asset that you are required to give away? They get a chance to determine, hey, I want to give to women causes, or causes with children, or causes with those that are homeless. They get a chance to determine those rules. So to get mad at the rules, and if they choose to invest in something that's a new startup or not, I think I wouldn't sign up for that class. I truly wouldn't sign up for that class to try to figure out why. But what I would do if I were a nonprofit is say, great, hey, let me learn the rules of engagement here, and let me start doing the work to position my nonprofit to be able to get the most funds through grants, through these other means, because we need to not rely on one source of funding. And then as we do that, then it's like the organization itself becomes a healthy organization, because they've learned from Jump Street not to be overly dependent upon one source of funding. And I know if I was a funder giving out some funds, I want to know that my investment is going to be I'm not going to be throwing my money in the commode.
No,
I do know that.
Of course, but at the same time, well, I think that's maybe a warning out to nonprofits. Be very careful about joining, playing a game where right up front, in my view, the rules are fixed. The rules are fixed for you, not
fixed for who? Fixed for who, Mark?
They're fixed for the funder, and not for they're fixed for the funder, and who's not often really in touch with really what the grander mission is all about.
No, get out of here. Get out of here, Mark. Here's the thing. The funders are trying to do good, and they want to see these nonprofits win. And I've talked to numerous ones of them. And when we look at it, we're talking about over 100,000 grant makers in the United States alone.
Yeah.
Roughly last time I looked at it with the Foundation Center, it was over like 108,000 some odd nonprofits that were foundations giving out funding, 16 some odd thousand of them having websites. These people are here to want to help these nonprofits. So I think we do a disservice to say that they're not set up for just for them to win. They're trying to do good, but we've got to follow in line with what they're trying to accomplish. Now, here's the thing, and hear me well on this part. I'm not in favor of a nonprofit morphing and becoming whatever that foundation is just to get the money. I am not in favor of that. I'm saying, hey, nonprofit, be true to being you, but you got to find where are those fits for you? Where are those Cinderella fits where there's a good fit with the foundation, what they want to get accomplished, and what you want to get accomplished, and finding those funders that will support you. But you've got to set the infrastructure up. You've got to get yourself on your own 2 feet. You cannot be overly dependent upon any of them, because this is not daycare. Okay, it's not their responsibility to take care of you and to grow you and to nurture you. That's a part of you getting the support of people who will believe in your organization, who will support your organization, who will give and grow on and mature. And as you mature, then funders say, okay, great, hey, that's something I want to invest in. To do otherwise is asking them to be daycare for you. And I'm like, okay, great. If you can't do that, we got a lot of nonprofits out here. Why don't you just go and support a nonprofit that's more well established? Because at the end of the day, this is about doing good.
Well, I guess that's a point where I'm saying on my view on things is the challenge about a lot of these funders is twofold. There is a lot of these funders, from what I've observed, I had the stats before, and they took a look at the CVs, a lot of these people who are deciding this, and their understanding of what actually takes to fund an organization or run an organization is often out of tune with a lot of the realities, per se, which sets up these difficult situations. And to your point of what you're saying, though, Rodney, of course you got to look for that Cinderella thing. But like I said, if you got a nonprofit and you're a solo ED, you're a founder, you got maybe 2 or 3 really hardworking, dedicated folks on board. I'm seeing the guest list here. A few of them I won't put your name out, but I recognize a number of you. Maybe you can relate to this. About there's only so many bloody hours in the day.
Sure.
And in the meantime, you still got to get the thing in. So I mean, it's a question, I guess, of resource allocation, and that's been my beef really about for nonprofits.
So tell me this, Mark. What do you suggest?
I suggest, frankly, like there are so many folks. I've said it right from the beginning. There are so many different ways that you can diversify your sources there to get that self-reliance. My God, there's planned giving. You can think about memberships. You can talk about social enterprise. You can do events and raffles, board giving. Your board should be giving a minimal amount of stuff like this, because otherwise, well, what the hell are they doing there? Online fundraising. There's direct mail campaigns. And yes, I love sponsorships for a variety of reasons. We won't get into that. But all of these different sources allow for you to be able to process and move on from one of those. The time invested in one application for a grant is just onerous.
Now that, Mark, I agree. Listen, I believe we need all the tools.
Okay.
Sometimes I believe I don't use a yardstick to measure stuff when I need to hammer something. Okay. Yeah. So I believe with you, we agree with that. You've got to have diversity. You've got to have diversity of funding. Now, those things can't help to make you reliant. Yeah. So the grant is not the all in all. It is really important, because here's the thing. When you start talking about the United States, you're talking about just in North America, in the United States alone, you're talking about over 70 some odd $billion that are given out in grant funding from foundations alone. Now that's not including the billions, if not trillions of dollars that are given out from the government side of things. So there's a lot of funding there. We just want to be wise about how we go about acquiring it and not be overly dependent on any one source.
All right. Well, tell me a little bit about this. I mean, what about the certain things that are, I guess, that you meet, I guess, that point about finding it. There's a lot out there, but finding that Cinderella, that diamond in the rough, that meets that you literally, I get the sense, you get the impression with some of these things where it's literally check, 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 and there's this 100 list check, and then my God, if you get 99 out of 100, sorry, good luck. So I mean, what's the best way that then in your mind that nonprofits can do that, keeping in mind that many of them are already strapped in time, a lot of not just financial but time resources.
Exactly. Well, here's what I suggest. I think too many nonprofits just race after grants. I think that's completely wrong. In fact, I think the vast majority that are going after grants are going about it the wrong way. And here's what I mean. Going about it the wrong way, a grant opportunity pops up. Oh, let's go apply for this grant. Okay. Oh, another grant opportunity pops up. Oh, let's go apply for this grant. That is not strategic. And really what I suggest that organizations do is, hey, hold your horses, back up, get a freaking game plan. Don't act like this is like, don't act so needy in that sense. A part of it, what I'm suggesting is say, hey, step back and then get a game plan. And a part of that game plan may involve you learning how to do this a wiser way, or it may involve you getting with the consultant or getting with someone to help shepherd you down this path, or it may involve you going and taking a class to learn about something so that you can be wiser in your approach. What I'm saying in essence is be more strategic, because if you're not strategic, you're gonna be wasting time. And time is money.
Absolutely. Well, you won't get any argument from me on that. And I think if I have one beef about the nonprofit, and I love them. I love you all out there, the nonprofit folks there, is how much they often tend to underestimate the importance of their own self-development, their own professional development, be more effective. So you're completely right on that point. So look, I'll close it off on a few points, what I think, and then maybe you can put a few points as well, and then we'll open it up for questions. Okay, so first point there. I think the alternative is just because of the look. I've been where you are. I've worked mostly in small organizations. My perception of the ones that I've seen that have really been killing it on grants and like that, they tend to be the Red Cross. They do like this. They've got staff where they can dedicate somebody literally to just that job. But if you're small, I believe firmly that you've got to take a few things. One, you've got to invest some time, carve out a point a little bit of time to be building a donor in your prospect list. You need to be thinking about how you can create a diversified fundraising plan as well.
Yes.
and maybe you can quote to this. I think if you must quote on this, I'm you know, you're warming me up, buddy, but I got to tell you, I'm not completely sold on them yet. There, because it's just I've seen too many killed in action there. Lost in action. Nonprofits succumb to this. Commit only to grants. Only.
No, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that.
Only.
You shouldn't do that.
Only if you meet all of the criteria. I think that would be my purse there. 2, you're willing to do some extensive research and write some tailored response. You already have some funding in place as well, and you understand that often enough, at least the stats I've read, is that first-time applications usually get rejected.
Sure.
So I firmly believe in a lot of other kind of diversifying. That's my point. I'll make that. That's my closing remarks. I pass it on to my debate opponent.
No arguments with me on making sure that you have those things in place. In fact, I believe nonprofits have to be grant ready. When we look at grants, just like sponsorships, just like all the other fundraising opportunities that exist, are just a vehicle. It's just one string in a court of a tire spoke, if you would kind of imagine. It's just one part of it. And all of those parts all require all the time the same thing. You got to be ready, and you have to become more attractive as an agency to get funding. And you want to get these things in place, whether you're going after grants, whether you're going after sponsorships, whether you're going after individual donors. Every one of those pieces are going to require the same thing. They're going to want to know that they're making a worthwhile investment. So to rely solely on grants, you're hearing from the grant guy saying that's a big mistake. But grants provide an enormous opportunity. And I just got a text that came in a couple of days ago from a gentleman that I helped to raise $250,000 for his nonprofit organization. Now, he was new to grant writing. He had not been writing grants before, but here he is with now $250,000 for one of their programs. And that money is going to make an enormous difference in the lives of the people that it's going to be able to touch. And so that's why I'm not in favor at all of dismissing grants. I've seen literally millions of dollars go into nonprofit organizations to help do good. And that's why I'm like, okay, great, I'm a fan of it. And that's another reason why, for me, I'm like, okay, hey, funders, keep on bringing the money. Here's the cool thing. As it relates to grants, funders are required to give away 5% of their net annual assets every year. It's not if they're going to give out the money, they're going to give out the money because it's a requirement when they set up their 501c3 to become a foundation, okay? Now, we've got to learn how to engage with them in a smart way to be able to maximize those fundings while also getting funding from these other sources as well. That's what I've got to say on that, Mark. I'm ready for some questions if you are.
Okay, well, there we go. We've had it, folks. We've gone up on the 45-minute point in time. We have one question here. Kanitha, we've asked you to join in your video if at all possible. I'm gonna unmute it. You put a question out to the group there. I'm gonna unmute you. Maybe you can ask both of us here what your question is. Go ahead, Kanitha. All right, you're not with us right now, I guess, or maybe you can unmute. She'd asked, what's the best way to get started if you're small with huge goals and bigger picture and a bigger picture, having a hard time with startup funds, nothing extravagant right now, just getting started?
Do you want to chime in first, Mark? I'll come in afterwards.
Okay, well, she says listening and driving. So we've got to respect that. Thank you for letting us know. Okay, well, look, I guess I go back to my points right from the beginning there. I'm particularly in your case, I'm going to give you some tough loves, I like to say. It ain't easy, but you've got to, if you must go for the grants, you're going to need to show that you've got some case studies behind you as well in what you're doing, because they're skittish. They want to make certain that their money's not going to go to waste. But if you're at that point, you really should be thinking about developing your assets thinking clearly about this. I think a lot of nonprofits don't realize what kind of the assets they are. And I love sponsorships, particularly for your type of smaller organizations, because you can create an asset that's of a value to the corporate, to the corporate world. And you'd be amazed at how many of them would be very keen on supporting your organization, because they know that community involvement or something like this is just good for business as well. So if you can get entrepreneurial about this and create a valuable asset where you think that they get an opportunity to be able to shine, then you're already on the way, frankly, towards getting your start going. And you feed this with some opportunities for them to be able to shine. You can create your programs as well as a result of this and build the case. And then, if you must, go talk to Rodney.
Hey. So, Kanita, thank you for that question. And I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Mark said. He gave some good advice there. Here's the other thing that I'm really a big proponent of. Become a student of learning how to get funds, how to market, and how to innovate, okay? Become a student, meaning that you got to roll up your sleeves and learn this. Learn how to market, because part of what you're going to have to do with your nonprofit organization is market, to get the word out. Nobody knows about you. If you're not putting out the good that you're doing and nobody knows about that, you're not going to get no money, okay? Secondly, you got to innovate. Start doing some things different. Ask yourself, who can you partner with since you're new and just starting out? You've got to get some traction. And it's one thing if you, as a smaller nonprofit, can partner up with some other larger nonprofits that are doing good. So now you start establishing history. You start establishing a track record. Now you start becoming more attractive, because you're not just talking about give me. You are doing some things by partnering with others, and by doing so, funders begin to find you more attractive because you're doing something. You're not just simply coming asking for funding. And then finally, as I said earlier, become a student of learning how to get funds.
Yeah.
Here's what I say to nonprofits, and I'm gonna say it. Okay, I'm gonna say it.
Get ready, Paul.
I love LOVE, love nonprofits, because the work they do in this world is crucial. It's crucial. I, Rodney, would not want to be in a world without nonprofits. Okay. With that being said, nonprofits tend to be lazy when it comes to the business side of things. And what I'm suggesting that you do as a nonprofit is not be lazy in your marketing, not be lazy in being strategic, be more deliberate. Don't simply rely on the passion, but get the education that's going to be required to be able to play the game well while doing well, while continuously making great impact. So that's my 2 cents. We'll
get me. Okay, we've been disagreeing on a few other points, but that you won't get any disagreement on. I've said this often too many times, is that, to be effective in a nonprofit, you have to have a tender heart, but still be fierce.
Yes.
You have to be tender but fierce, and good. Kanita says I can do that. I can take it in innovative. And innovative is my middle name. Love it. Okay,
that's great.
So that's the thing, though. It's just you can't. You gotta have heart, but you can't forget your head.
Yes.
You can't forget your head. And I think so many of them, where they follow this, is they get so in love with the passion that they have, that they forget that there are concrete steps that you've got to do, and you've got to make investments in yourself.
Yes. And
if anything, your heart and the people that depend on your organization, you owe it to them.
Absolutely. And you shorten the learning curve when you get with people who already have been there and done it. That's why it doesn't make any sense. If I'm thinking about sponsorships, it doesn't make any sense for me to be trying to scratch my head and trying to figure this out on my own. Mark, I'm calling you. I'm calling someone that has that expertise. The other thing is this. I found that a lot of nonprofits, too many nonprofits, are trying to be the Lone Ranger. They're trying to go at it by themselves. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever. It's just ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
Because why are you trying to go at it by yourself when the nonprofit itself exists for the greater good of the community? Who might you partner with? You become more attractive to funders when they see that you're not going at it all by yourself, that you are working in the ecosystem for the greater good of people, okay? For the greater good of people. So part of what I'm saying in essence is don't be stuck on you. Be committed to the outcome of doing good.
I've said that often. Sometimes I say a little bit. You know, your horse is too high. I put a post a number of weeks ago. You might remember. Your horse is just too goddamn high.
Yes.
Get over yourself and focus it, because there are people who are counting on you, and you need that passion to drive it. But if you're not thinking about the practical thing about this, your first and foremost business, you believe it or not, you're in the business of sales. I firmly believe that. You're in this there. If you suck at that, then you're going to suck at your nonprofit, Frank.
Exactly.
Anyway, look, I thought this was supposed to be a debate, but it turns out at the end we're vigorously agreeing. The point of which we're vigorously agreeing with each other. But the point of it all, folks, is and that of the group of Facebook on Facebook, fundraising nonprofit fundraising hackers, is we're all trying to find some creative ways to break out of the paths that we get stuck in. And thank you, Kanita. She says, y'all rock. You too, Kanita. So there's a way, there's got to be a better way. And I firmly believe, you know what, in life and in everything, suffering is optional. So suffering is optional. So look, I'm going to leave it on that. I don't know. We've got some other people on the line there. Larry, Patty, I don't know if you've got any kind of questions. You've been kind of listening in silent. That's fine. You can let me know. We'll open it up the line for a moment here to anybody else who wants it as well. If you've got any questions, pipe up. Otherwise, at this point, we are going to close it up at the end as we get to the top of the hour. All right. Well, no other points. Rodney, thank you. It's been a blast. You know, I appreciate it. I think we're going to have a professional disagreement on some of it, but indeed there are some. There probably are some places where grants are, but again, folks, think about them really long and hard. Even you have the grants here, they're not all everything you think they ought to be. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, thanks for having me. Have a good one.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.